The war in Gaza is at a crossroads, with hostages for ceasefire talks apparently stalled. Israel poised to increase military pressure on Hamas, while at the same time guaranteeing humanitarian assistance for the Gaza population. More on the latest on day 661 of the war in Gaza from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
The choices for Israel are fateful. If there is no chance to reach a hostage ceasefire deal, Israel's other option is to continue the war until victory. Prime Minister Netanyahu explained the decision to renew humanitarian aid, despite the failure to reach a hostage deal. Netanyahu claimed that Israel is winning the war while always allowing the minimum entry of supplies.
כדי להשלים את היעד הזה, גם של חיסול החמאס וגם של שחרור חטופינו, אנחנו מתקדמים בלחימה ומנהלים משא ומתן. בכל נתיב שנבחר, בכל נתיב, נצטרך להמשיך לאפשר כניסה של אספקה הומניטרית מינימלית. עשינו את זה עד עכשיו.
The Prime Minister emphasized that the war is not over.
אנחנו נמשיך להילחם, ואנחנו נמשיך לפעול עד שנשיג את כל יעדי המלחמה שלנו, עד הניצחון המוחלט.
Indeed, military operations both above and below ground are continuing in Gaza. The army released a video showing a 500-meter-long Hamas tunnel in northern Gaza's Beit Hanun being demolished, and this was the most recent in a series of tunnels discovered and destroyed in recent days. These are indeed fateful days, with life or death on the line for Israeli hostages, soldiers, and the Gazan civilian population suffering due to the stubbornness of Hamas to reach a deal or lay down its weapons.
And U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday said he disagrees with Prime Minister Netanyahu that there is no hunger in Gaza. Speaking in Scotland ahead of a meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Trump said that there are people who are hungry in Gaza, saying the United States was helping them, but reiterated his claim that other countries must help too. Trump said he and the British Prime Minister would discuss the issue. These comments come just one day after President Trump said that following the collapse of hostage negotiations, Israel will have to make a decision on how to proceed in Gaza. The details of Trump's comments and his European visit in the following report. U.S. President Donald Trump said Israel would have to decide on their next steps in Gaza, underscoring the importance of securing the release of the hostages held by Hamas and blaming the terrorist group for suddenly hardening their stance.
I mean, they're devastated. And I said, when you get it down to a certain number, you're not going to be able to make a deal with Hamas. Because once they give them up, then they feel that that's going to be the end of them. And what I said is exactly true. You know, they had a routine discussion the other day, and all of a sudden they hardened up. They don't want to give them back. And so Israel's going to have to make a decision.
Speaking at the start of a meeting with European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen in Scotland, Trump said he didn't know what would happen next.
What's going to happen? I don't know. I can tell you that Hamas, as I said, would happen at the end. You know, we've gotten back a lot of hostages, a tremendous number of hostages, most of them. Now we have dead hostages, and the mothers want them back, and we have 20 people approximately, but that are living. But we have a lot of bodies, and the parents want those bodies as much as they would want their child if that child were alive. I met with parents that it was so sad. Sir, please get my son back. How is your son doing? Well, he's dead.
When asked by a reporter about the images of children coming out of Gaza, Trump said it's terrible, but placed the blame on Hamas.
But, you know, when I see the children, and when I see, especially over the last couple of weeks, and people are stealing the food, they're stealing the money for the food, they're stealing weapons, they're stealing everything. It's a mess. That whole place is a mess. The Gaza Strip, you know, was given many years ago so that they could have peace. That didn't work out too well. When Israel gave that up, whoever was the prime minister at the time, who I know who it was, but it was not exactly a very clever thing to do, because that was given so that they finally have peace, and it's actually made the situation worse.
Trump refused to elaborate on what he would do, but he did say that the United States provided $60 million in food to the Palestinians without even receiving a thank you, while he said other countries, especially European countries, have given nothing. European countries making a lot of noise against Israel, but as President Trump pointed out, doing nothing to actually help the situation. And moving on, a UN official says that some progress has been made in easing Gaza aid movement. Israel is continuing to allow massive amounts of humanitarian aid to enter the enclave in trucks and airdrops while insisting that Hamas is the cause of the problem. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
United Nations aid chief Tom Fletcher said that some movement restrictions on aid appear to have been eased by Israel in Gaza after Israel agreed to support a one-week scale-up of aid. According to the UN, more than 100 truckloads of aid were collected from crossroads to be transported into Gaza. Fletcher added that while progress is being made, vast amounts of aid are still needed to curtail the famine and massive health crisis. The IDF spokesman said that Israel cares more about the nutrition of Gazans than Hamas does.
במקביל לגנבת הסיוע ההומניטרי מתושבי הרצועה והגירתו במנהרות, חמאס פתח בקמפיין שקרי וכוזב על הרעבה ברצועת עזה. התמונות היוצאות מתוך הרצועה קשות, והן חלק מאותו קמפיין שקר. אני רוצה להיות ברור בדבריי. אין הרעבה ברצועת עזה.
Brigadier General Defrin insisted that the army is carefully monitoring the situation and is not subjugating the Palestinian people in Gaza to starvation.
אז גם כאן אנחנו במשך חודשים רבים, המתפ"ש מנטר באופן יומיומי מספר פעמים ביום על ידי מומחים את המצב ברצועת עזה. דרך אגב, לא רק מזון, רפואה, סניטציה ועוד ועוד ועוד. עוקבים אחרי זה בצורה אדוקה. כשמגיעים לקווים, כשהם מתחילים להיות בעייתיים, צה"ל פועל להכנסת סיוע הומניטרי. כך היה בהקמת מרכזי חלוקת המזון. כך קרה גם בסוף שבוע האחרון.
Meanwhile, in addition to the flow of aid by trucks, Israel and Jordan and the UAE have been carrying out coordinated airdrops of aid into Gaza. The drops over the past 24 hours included 25 tons of food and humanitarian supplies.
And influential Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says President Trump has concluded that the war in Gaza cannot be ended by negotiating with Hamas. According to Senator Graham, Israel will remove Hamas from power the same way the Allies removed the Nazis from power in Germany and forced the surrender of Japan. Graham compared Israel's efforts to end the war in Gaza to the Allied decapitation of the governments of Berlin and Tokyo at the end of World War II. Let's take a listen to his comments.
I think President Trump has come to believe, and I certainly have come to believe, there's no way you're going to negotiate an end to this war with Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization who is chartered to destroy the state of Israel. They're religious Nazis. They hold Israeli hostages. I think Israel's come to conclude that they can't achieve a goal of ending the war with Hamas that would be satisfactory to the safety of Israel, and if they're going to do in Gaza what we did in Tokyo and Berlin, take the place by force, then start over again, presenting a better future for the Palestinians, hopefully having the Arabs take over the West Bank and Gaza. But I think going forward, Christian, you're going to see a change in tactics, a full military effort by Israel to take Gaza down like we did in Tokyo and Berlin.
And joining us now with more on the latest developments in Gaza and the claims of famine and a humanitarian crisis is veteran Israeli journalist Ariel Kahana. Ariel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lidar. It's good to be with you again.
So we've seen massive international condemnation and pressure on Israel regarding the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Israel, of course, is denying these claims. So the first question I want to ask is there really a humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
So I guess there is at least a problem. You know, it's a war zone. I can tell you, Lida, I was last week myself in Gaza for about an hour. I joined the Israeli troops inside. I saw a lot of damage, a lot of fallen houses around me. I asked the soldiers, and they told me everything in every house we find it is either a bomb, either a gun, and so on. So it was used for terror, and Israel has no other choice than to destroy those places. And by the way, it's legal according to international law. I didn't see Arabs who lives in Gaza. I didn't see Gazans, so I can't tell you, according to my eyes, what's going on with the food there. But I guess it's hard. We see the pictures. To me, I'm sure that some of the pictures are fake. There is propaganda going out from Gaza. You know, it's not a free place, Gaza. Hamas in the places it's controlled very strongly, and people over there know what they are allowed to show outside and what they are not allowed to show outside. Now again, I'm sure there is kind of problem, but what I do know as well, and I'm just now coming out from a meeting that someone updated me once again, is that actually what happened is that it was the UN, the United Nations, and its agencies who stopped delivering the food. As you may know, the IDF showed that the content of 900 trucks was not taken by the UN agencies during the last week from the cross-border to the population centers in Gaza.
So Israel has said that it has let in an unprecedented amount of aid into the Strip. As you mentioned, the UN refuses to deliver much of this aid. Hamas is stealing much of it, that we've seen. So what can or should be done? That's one question. And the other question is, the international pressure on Israel has been so intense that Prime Minister Netanyahu has agreed to temporary daily ceasefires to let in aid, despite Israel having already let this aid in. Is this a massive Hezbollah or PR failure on Israel's part, that the world is simply not understanding the reality on the ground?
Well, unfortunately, it is, Lidar, because Israel, I would say, poorly explained what's really going on the ground in Gaza. The response was very little and very late. And I don't know why it is happening. I can tell you that in Hebrew, I more than once wrote about, as you said, the Hezbollah problem. And actually, it's not Hezbollah, it's just showing the truth, showing the facts. We are not doing it strongly enough. And from the other hand, what Hamas and the UN are doing is because they understand very well that the one who will spread the food, who will distribute the food in Gaza, will be the one who actually controls the population. That's why they are trying so hard to share that propaganda as if there is a problem in Gaza. If you go back to prior to October 2023, you will see that Hamas, way before the war, said there is hunger in Gaza. And not only Hamas, the UN also said there is a problem of food, and actually hunger. They use the word hunger in Gaza. So I can tell you, or I'm sure, that just as before the war there was no hunger in Gaza, I'm sure there is no hunger now in Gaza. Again, maybe there is a problem. It's a war zone, but I'm sure there is no hunger. I'm sure all of that is Hamas and pro-Hamas propaganda. And I want to tell you once again that inside Gaza, the United Nations organizations and Hamas are heavily connected one to each other. I saw in Gaza, in my own eyes, in a previous visit, I saw that underground, we had the Hamas main servers control underground, and UNRWA on the ground, and the electricity was connected from UNRWA on the ground to Hamas servers underground, to Hamas computers underground. It was connected one to each other. And that's how Hamas generally, with the UN, are connected inside Gaza. So once they understood they may lose the control of spreading the food in Gaza, which means controlling the population, they began this campaign. And you're right, unfortunately, Israel, regarding the campaign, the propaganda campaign, the narrative campaign, unfortunately, Israel lost.
And now we heard President Trump say that Israel needs to decide what to do next. How do you interpret his statement, and what options are on the table for Benjamin Netanyahu now?
So, first of all, this evening, Monday evening, there's going to be another meeting of Netanyahu and his senior ministers to actually decide what are the coming steps for Israel to do. Because we have to recall, Lidar, that it's not only the humanitarian issue, it's also what's going on with the hostages. Because the negotiations in Qatar, as you know, actually failed last week. So Israel has no path now how to release the hostages. There is that humanitarian issue we discussed. And of course, there is a question, where is the war going to? So President Trump said he knows what he would have done. And I guess is, as you said a few months ago, he said it's open hell over Gaza. I guess that's what Trump would do if he was the one to decide. But from Israelis' point of view, and especially from Prime Minister Netanyahu's point of view, all of that is much more complicated. So I can't tell you what Netanyahu is going to decide in the coming hours and days, because the issue, again, is very, very complicated, very sensitive. We have at least 20 alive hostages that we want to get them alive, and at least Netanyahu wants to do it by a deal. Hamas practically refuses to a deal. So how can we bring them back? It's a very painful question. I don't know what the answer is, but Israel is before very serious dilemmas, and the decisions will have to be made in the coming hours.
Absolutely, a lot of decisions to be made, and we, of course, will continue to follow. Eyal Kahana, thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you very much.
When Israel is under fire, the world watches. But we act. Since 1901, Jewish National Fund USA has stood with our homeland. From the moment missiles rained down, we were there, caring for children of essential workers, turning shelters into sanctuaries, providing fire trucks and more. Israel is our family, and you always show up for family. To support the people of Israel for today and tomorrow, turn to the trusted name in philanthropy, Jewish National Fund USA.
Israel Bonds, the heartbeat of solidarity, the powerhouse of support. When the Israeli-Hamas war hit, Israel Bonds stood tall, proving we're more than just an investment, we're a lifeline. Israel Bonds pledges to ensure Israel thrives and flourishes. Investing in Israel Bonds isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration for resilience, strength, and a better future for Israel. Join us and let solidarity echo through generations.
And moving on, Prime Minister Netanyahu joined an evangelical conference in Jerusalem led by Trump advisor Pastor Paula White. Titled Together as One, the event emphasized Israel's bond with Christians. More on the event from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
Addressing the Christian Evangelical Conference in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected the claims of Gazan starvation and urged a united front against global misinformation.
The main thing that I want to stress is the importance of winning the battle for truth. And that is a battle that we fought even as we speak now. Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza. We enable humanitarian aid throughout the duration of the war to enter Gaza. Otherwise, there would be no Gazans. And what has interdicted the supply of humanitarian aid is one force, Hamas. Again, the reversal of truth. Hamas robs, steals this humanitarian aid, and then accuses Israel of not supplying it.
Speaking alongside Pastor White, leader of the White House Faith Office, Netanyahu highlighted shared Judeo-Christian heritage and Israel's unique role as protector of Christian communities in the Middle East.
And we got so many responses of people who identified not only with our resolve, our ingenuity, and our power, but also with our values.
Pastor White urged Americans, especially Christians, to come and experience Israel.
America likes to think and we are the greatest nation of democracy and freedom, but especially young people and everyone wants to be a free thinker. And yet they're so bound by silly things that are so manipulated, like social media. Yeah. And whether it's TikTok or whichever one is getting their attention and putting out fake algorithms. You owe it to yourself to come to Israel. To be by yourself here, be with a group, be with friends and family, to explore the land, to meet the people, to eat the food, to go to the sites, to see the science, to see the archaeology, and then to sit, and especially I'm speaking to Christians, to sit in solitude.
And turning now to the northern front, where Hezbollah continue to violate the ceasefire agreement with Lebanon, and Israel continues to respond. 2 Hezbollah members were killed in a drone strike in southern Lebanon. The strike killed Mohammed Haidar Aboud, an operations officer, and another unnamed operative responsible for artillery for the terrorists. The army says the pair were involved in efforts to restore the Radwan forces' capabilities and planning for attacks against Israel. The army said the activities were a violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. And in diplomatic news, the Israeli Foreign Ministry has summoned the most senior French diplomat in the country for a reprimand and did not hold back, accusing France of sabotaging the ceasefire negotiations. Foreign Ministry Director General Eden Bartal told the French deputy ambassador that France had chosen to harm Israel at its most difficult hour and said that the declaration of French President Emmanuel Macron to recognize a Palestinian state directly undermines negotiations for the release of hostages and for a ceasefire. Last week, Macron announced that France would make the solemn declaration recognizing a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly in September. Acting at the direction of Foreign Minister Guidon Sall, the Director General called the French move a severe diplomatic affront. He told the French diplomat that France's declarations about what is best for Israel's security instead of Israel's elected government are baseless presumptions that violate Israeli sovereignty. And we want to wrap our program today with a positive story. Returned hostage and survivor 54-year-old Ofel Calderon is participating in the iconic Tour de France. Ofel spent 484 excruciating days in Hamas captivity and was released in February of this year. Today, he is racing in the most iconic cycling event in Europe. ILTV's Deborah Klein has the story.
54-year-old Ofel Calderon spent 484 excruciating days in Hamas captivity. He was starved, humiliated, and even believed his children had not survived the massacre. Today, Ofel Calderon has picked up his passion for cycling and is biking tall and proud in the Champs-Élysées in Paris, France. Prior to October 7th, Ofel was known around his kibbutz as a prominent cycler. Whenever he could, Ofel would bike around Nir Oz and across the country, serving as a symbol athlete for the community. Today, Ofel is a symbol internationally of resilience, perseverance, and strength. Calderon's trip to Paris was made possible by fellow cycler, Canadian businessman Sylvan Adams. Adams connected with Ofel upon his release and knew that flying him to the Tour de France would be a full-circle moment. The two were seen biking together through the streets of Paris. Ofel was kidnapped from his home in Nir Oz on October 7th. His children, 16-year-old Sahar Calderon and 12-year-old Erez Calderon, were also kidnapped, but released in the first phase of the first hostage deal in November of 2023. The 3 Calderon family members had their lives forever altered on one dark morning, but now they are finding new partners to rehabilitation, returning to normalcy and inspiring Israelis across the country and around the world.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see sunny skies alongside hot temperatures with highs of 34 degrees Celsius or 94 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel. And you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ladar Gravelazi. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.